हेलो एवरीवन, माय नेम इज अश्विन जोगलेकर एंड आई एम फ्रॉम रेजोनेंस पीसीसीपी डिवीजन। तो आज हम कंटिन्यू करते हैं अपनी सीरीज ऑफ हिस्ट्री चैप्टर्स। नाउ टुडे वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग नेशनलिज्म इन इंडिया, दैट इज द चैप्टर सेकंड फ्रॉम योर हिस्ट्री पोर्शन, वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ सोशल साइंस ऑफ योर क्लास 10th। सो आज के भी सीरीज में इस वीडियो में हम नेशनलिज्म इन इंडिया को एक क्विक समरी में देखेंगे और एनसीईआरटी के जो क्वेश्चन आंसर्स हैं बुक के उनको डिस्कस करेंगे। सो लेट अस बिगिन एंड स्टार्ट दिस। ओके, सो एज यू कैन सी सबसे पहले आपकी चैप्टर की स्टार्टिंग होती है फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर एंड इट्स इफेक्ट्स। तो यहाँ पे शॉर्ट पॉइंट्स में आपको दे रखा है कि क्या क्या फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के कारण इफेक्ट्स हुए, दैट इज ऑन इंडिया। नाउ एज वी कैन सी, that is, as you know, first world war lasted from 1914 to 1918. अब इसमें इस टाइम पीरियड में इंडिया पे क्या इफेक्ट्स हुए, दैट इज कस्टम ड्यूटीज इंक्रीज हुई, इनकम टैक्स को इंट्रोड्यूस करा गया क्योंकि जो वॉर लोन्स लिए थे उनको रीपे भी करना है। तो इन सब के लिए अगेन द गवर्नमेंट वांटेड टू एक्सट्रैक्ट इट फ्रॉम द कॉलोनीज। सेकेंड, एक्सट्रीम हार्डशिप्स पीपल हैड टू फेस बिकॉज ऑफ द इंक्रीज इन प्राइस ऑफ एसेंशियल गुड्स। तो जो रोजमर्रा की चीजें हैं उनके प्राइसेस बढ़ गए, तो जिसके कारण लोगों को परेशानी हुई। फोर्स रिक्रूटमेंट, नाउ यू सॉ दिस इन नेशनलिज्म इन यूरोप एज वेल। वहां पे भी नेपोलियन की आर्मीज जब इन्वेड कर रही थी रेस्ट ऑफ द यूरोप, तो दे ऑल्सो हैड फोर्स रिक्रूटमेंट इन द आर्मी, दैट इज फ्रॉम द विलेजेस पीपल वर फोर्सफुली रिक्रूटेड। लास्ट पॉइंट, शॉर्टेज ऑफ फूड ड्यू टू क्रॉप फेलियर हुआ, फेमाइन्स हुए, एपिडेमिक्स हुए एंड सम अकॉर्डिंग टू द सेंसस ऑफ 1921 12 to 13 मिलियन पीपल हैड पेरिश्ड और डाइड बिकॉज ऑफ इट। तो ये था फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर एंड इट्स इफेक्ट्स ऑन इंडिया। अगेन दिस कम्स एज एन इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन मोस्ट ऑफ टाइम इन बोर्ड एग्जाम्स। नाउ महात्मा गांधी रिटर्न फ्रॉम साउथ अफ्रीका इन January of 1915. In South Africa also he had led a successful campaign of सत्याग्रह. Now सत्याग्रह क्या है? Again you can see NCERT में आपका एक बॉक्स में given है the idea of सत्याग्रह, that is emphasize the power of truth and the need to search for truth, right, and to use methods which are non-violent. If the cause is against injustice and if the cause is true, then you don't need to use any kind of violence against the oppressor. Now basically in the starting Mahatma Gandhi organized 3 initial satyagraha movements, that is first of all in Champaran in 1917, and this satyagraha was against the oppressive plantation systems there. Second was organized in Kheda satyagraha, that is against tax demand, increasing tax demand by the landlords and the people, that is the peasants had to pay in Kheda, that is in Gujarat. And then the third for the mill workers in Ahmedabad satyagraha. So these 3 initial satyagrahas were launched by Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, next comes is Rowlatt Act. Now as we know, again Rowlatt Act becomes an important question in terms of your board exams as well. आगे जो कहानी मूव करती है तो 1919 के एस्पेक्ट में आ गए हम। अब बिकॉज फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर खत्म होने के बाद हम इंडियंस ने फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर में इस सेंस से पार्टिसिपेट करा था दैट आफ्टर द वॉर इज ओवर प्रॉब्ली ब्रिटिशर्स वुड गिव अस मोर कंसेशंस इन फॉर्म ऑफ राइट्स, बट वो सब नहीं हुआ। एंड टू रिप्रेस द ग्रोइंग नेशनलिज्म इन द कंट्री, ब्रिटिशर्स केम अप विद दिस राउलेट एक्ट. नाउ दिस एक्ट गेव गवर्नमेंट इनॉर्मस पावर्स टू रिप्रेस पॉलिटिकल एक्टिविटीज. It was passed by the Imperial Legislative Council and hurriedly and despite the opposition of the Indian members. अब इसके खिलाफ नेशन वाइड हड़ताल बुलाई गई गांधी जी के द्वारा on 6th of April 1990. लोकल लीडर्स को अरेस्ट करा गया अमृतसर में, डॉक्टर सत्यपाल एंड डॉक्टर सैफुद्दीन किचलू, दे वर अरेस्टेड एंड गांधी जी वॉज बार्ड फ्रॉम एंटरिंग दिल्ली. मार्शल लॉ 10th of April को इम्पोज कर दिया गया था अमृतसर में. एंड इसी से लिंक्ड आता है हमारा the most infamous incident in Indian history about Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which happened on 13th of April 1990. Now after this massacre, Indian responded by attacking government offices, buildings and whatever the symbolized British So therefore Mahatma Gandhi later on decided to call off this Rowlatt Satyagraha. Now moving on, non-cooperation movement. Now इस टाइम तक आते आते about the खिलाफत movement जो हम एक देखते हैं. Now what is खिलाफत movement? That is, there were rumors that a severe treaty, that is Treaty of Sevres, was being imposed on the Khalifa or the Ottoman Turkish Empire, and which would take away the temporal powers of the Khalifa. Now Muslims all over the world were agitated by this, and therefore Mahatma Gandhi wanted to bring together both the communities in India, that is the Hindus and the Muslims together, unite them against a common cause, that is against the Britishers. Now as we can see, probably Hindus will come out for Swaraj, वो स्वराज के नाम पे आएंगे, and Muslims will join in the name of खिलाफत. तो इन दोनों को कंबाइन करके against the British. So this was the idea. The movement began in 1921 with the participation of various social groups. The main cause was the Khilafat issue, which Gandhiji believed to be a platform for Hindu-Muslim unity. Methods of non-cooperation, किस तरह से non-cooperation launch करा जाएगा, that he said in his book named Hind Swaraj. And according to this book, Mahatma Gandhi said that the Britishers, a handful of Britishers, have been able to control over the millions of Indians is only because that we have allowed our cooperation to them. अगर हम ये cooperation नहीं करते उनके साथ तो probably Swaraj will be achieved. And he suggested ways, that is how different methods of non-cooperation, that is government titles हमें surrender करने होंगे, boycott of civil services, army, ठीक है, police, schools and foreign goods had to be also boycotted, picketing of liquor shops. Now earlier when this thing was being discussed, that non-cooperation movement should be launched, and also boycott of council elections, that is council elections as well was also suggested. तो दो सेशंस हैं यहाँ पे. बेसिकली जिनको हमें देखना है. ओके, सो पहला सेशन आपका सितंबर 1920 Calcutta, and then December session 1920 of Nagpur. तो थ्रू these sessions, सबसे पहले वाले सेशन में तो ये कहा गया कि ऐसा ऐसा एक मूवमेंट लॉन्च करना चाहते हैं. तो अगेन सितंबर से दिसंबर में कांग्रेस के अंदर ही काफ़ी उसको लेके डिबेट डिस्कशन रहे. एक ग्रुप कह रहा है नहीं करना चाहिए, गांधी जी के सपोर्टर्स जो हैं वो कह रहे हैं करना चाहिए. फाइनली दिसंबर 1920 में इट वाज डिसाइडेड एट द नागपुर सेशन कि ओके नॉन कोऑपरेशन खिलाफत मूवमेंट विल बी लॉन्च्ड, एंड जनवरी 1921 में दिस मूवमेंट वाज लॉन्च्ड. ऑलराइट, देयर वाज अपोजिशन विद इन द कांग्रेस टू बॉयकॉट लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल इलेक्शंस, बट द इशू वाज रिजॉल्व्ड इन द December 1920 नागपुर सेशन ऑफ कांग्रेस. फाइनली मूवमेंट लॉन्च हुआ. नाउ डिफरेंट स्टैंड्स विद इन द मूवमेंट, क्या डिफरेंट वो थे विद इन द मूवमेंट, दैट इज पहला मूवमेंट इन टाउन्स, कंट्री साइड में, एंड फाइनली प्लांटेशंस में. नाउ मूवमेंट इन टाउन्स जो अर्बन मिडिल क्लास है, ठीक है, उनके द्वारा हुआ, एंड इट स्टार्टेड विद द बॉयकॉट, दैट इज स्टूडेंट्स लेफ्ट गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स, ऑफिसेस, officers resigned from office, lawyers gave up their practices, traders and merchants refused to trade in foreign goods. The movement slowed down because again people were encouraged to buy khadi, but the khadi was compared to the mill cloth which was being imported that time from the British industries, khadi was expensive. So people again the movement completely slowed down because of the high price of khadi, lack of alternative Indian institutions, that is when students left their colleges, schools, alternate Indian institutions were slow to come up. Now second part is about the rebellion in countryside, that is again यहाँ पे दो पॉइंट्स को कवर करते हैं. पहला अवध रीजन में, that is it was led by बाबा रामचंद्र, who along with Jawaharlal Nehru later on formed the Awadh or Audh Kisan Sabha, which again became a part of the wider non-cooperation movement when it was launched. Awadh peasant movement led by Baba Ramchandra against landlords demanding high rents and other cesses. So जो oppressive landlords हैं वहाँ पे उनके लिए उनको उनके खिलाफ peasants को organize करा बाबा रामचंद्र ने अवध region में, led to the formation of अवध और औध किसान सभा. Then next part is आपका tribal movement जो गुदेम हिल्स में हुआ आंध्र प्रदेश में, where it was led by अलूरी सीताराम राजू against the government policy. The movement was led by Alluri Sitaram Raju. Now, even Alluri Sitaram Raju believed in most of the things which were advocated by Mahatma Gandhi, but only one thing, that is, he said that violence was necessary or violence had to be used to gain independence. Rest related to boycott of foreign cloth, foreign liquor, he also supported Gandhiji's view. Then Swarajan plantations. अब जो प्लांटेशन वर्कर्स होते थे, एक इनलैंड इमिग्रेशन एक्ट था 1859 का, which restricted the plantation workers to leave the tea gardens without permission. Now workers जब उन्होंने सुना इस call of Swaraj, they defied the government, the authorities there and left the plantations, but because of the strike which was there of the transport system at that time, these were the policemen approached them, beated them, were beaten up. These people were beaten up and again brought back to the plantations. तो इस तरह से non-cooperation movement. Then finally, as you know, जो incident है चौरी चौरा का, that led to the calling of a non-cooperation movement. The next headline is about towards civil disobedience movement, that is withdrawal of non-cooperation movement due to the चौरी चौरा incident at Gorakhpur. Now again there was a debate within the Congress regarding council entry कि council elections boycott करने चाहिए, कुछ again कह रहे थे कि नहीं, we should work towards building up this idea of nationalism among the different parts of the country. Some people within the Congress believed no, we should take part in the council elections and should target the government or the British government from the within the system. So led to the formation of Swaraj Party by Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru within the Congress. Now this Swaraj group was within the Congress. Then some other aspects which were leading towards civil disobedience movement were, that is the Tory government in Britain under the chairmanship of Sir John Simon Commission was assigned. It was supposed to look into the constitutional changes of system in India and suggest some reforms or changes. Sought to look into the functioning of the constitutional system in India and suggest changes. The only problem with Simon Commission was it did not have any Indian members, it had only English members. So therefore, when Simon Commission arrived in India, it was boycotted mutually by most of the parties in India, that is Congress as well as the Muslim League. With Simon go back Simon, the slogans. Seeing the situation become tense, Lord Irwin at that time, who was the Viceroy, offered a solution, that is in October 1929 recommended a dominant status for India and a round table conference for discussing future constitution of India. Now the Congress party at that time rejected this, that we will not be attending the round table conference and also we do not need a dominant status. So next comes is the session, 1929 session of the Congress at Lahore, that is under the presidentship of Jawaharlal Nehru, and now what they demanded was the idea. Now they said that we do not want freedom, we do not want Swaraj, we want Poorn Swaraj, हमें complete independence चाहिए. So Lahore session of Congress demanded for Poorn Swaraj. Gandhi ji, again also it was decided that 26th of January 1930 से they would celebrate Independence Day, but finally on the day of 26 January 1930, people were not so enthusiastic to join it. So therefore Gandhiji was thinking of a way in which more people could be brought together. He came up with an idea about his demands, that is he raised 11 demands and sent a letter to Viceroy Irwin at that time stating his 11 demands. One of the demand which was very important was the abolition of salt law, that is chose salt as the medium of protesting for protesting against the British rule. Now why he chose salt was because कि नमक एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो even the rich people have, even the poor people have, even the Hindus and the Muslims. So, in even the upper caste or the lower caste. So, everyone could associate with such a thing. So, he sent a letter to Viceroy Irwin stating his 11 demands, and in which he stated if these demands are not, in a way he gave an ultimatum कि अगर ये demands हमारी meet नहीं होती है, so we will launch a nationwide movement against civil disobedience movement. Now, the important aspect that he started from his ashram in Sabarmati with 78 volunteers, walked a distance of 240 miles and reached the coastal town of Dandi, where he boiled sea water to manufacture salt, and therefore started the civil disobedience movement as well as breaking a colonial law. Now, important difference between non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement here is, first of all, that is in non-cooperation movement it was not encouraged, that is people were not asked to break any colonial law, but in civil disobedience movement people were asked to break a colonial law. So, Mahatma Gandhi started salt march from Sabarmati to Dandi with 78 followers, and later on hundreds and thousands of people joined him to listen to him about his idea of satyagraha, the non-violent method to achieve independence. Reached Dandi on 6th of April 1930 and violated the salt law by manufacturing salt from sea. Spread of the movement, this movement spread to entire nation. Again, similar things, that is foreign cloths were burned in huge numbers, bonfires. Picketing was done of liquor shops. Now, what is picketing? Picketing is a term which says that we block the entrance of a shop, so that, and try to convince people not to buy from that shop. So, picketing, it is a form of again a non-violent protest, where you simply आप किसी भी person को आप एक entrance जो shop की है उसको block कर देते हो, और आप जो भी उस सामान वहाँ से सामान खरीदना चाह रहा है उसको समझाते हो कि नहीं, हमें कहीं ना कहीं स्वदेशी चीजें अपनानी है, हमें फॉरेन गुड्स को बॉयकॉट करना है. Gandhi ji was arrested, and even the other Congress leaders like Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Jawaharlal Nehru, they were also arrested. This led to the signing of the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, because again seeing the situation turn violent, Gandhi ji decided to enter into the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, which was signed on 5th of March 1931. Gandhi ji agreed to participate in round table conference which was to be held in London. Government agreed to release the political prisoners, that is in this Gandhi-Irwin Pact it was decided that Congress would call off the movement, call off CDM, okay, and in return the government would release all the political prisoners, and also Mahatma Gandhi agreed to attend the second round table conference which was supposed to take place in London. Now, the second round table conference he attended in London, but the negotiations failed and there was no proper conclusion which could be arrived. So, it resulted in a failure, and after coming back to India, he saw that the Congress, most of the leaders of the Congress were still in jail, and Congress as a party had been declared illegal. So, he again tried to relaunch the movement, but the initial enthusiasm with which the people had participated in the movement earlier had already faded away. So, when he tried to relaunch the movement, there was not much of enthusiasm from the people's side. So, relaunch of the movement, Mahatma Gandhi relaunched the movement in 1932, but by 1934 it lost its momentum. Now, participation of people in the movement. Now, in this, rich peasant communities, they participated in the movement, like Patidars of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh participated, because they felt that at least their demands could be met by the government, so that therefore enthusiastically they participated. They opposed the high revenue demands of the government. Poor peasantry, mainly the small tenants that had rented their land from landlords, found difficulty in paying rent due to the depression, and they did not participate as such completely. Why? Because they wanted the complete rent to be exempted, whereas the landlords wanted that at least what they had to pay to the government should be relaxed. In the business classes, they wanted protection against imports on foreign goods, because during the First World War they made huge profits. So now they wanted such a system to be continued, through which they could make more profits. So therefore they formed their the Industrial and Commercial Congress in 1920 and the Federation of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries FICCI in 1927 to encourage the government to look into their concerns. Now industrial workers did not much participate in large numbers except in the Nagpur region. Women participated in protest marches, manufactured salt, picketed foreign cloth and liquor shops. Now, failure of the civil disobedience movement. Movement was called off without the fulfillment of the demand of the rich peasant communities. So therefore, when it was relaunched, these rich peasant communities were not that enthusiastic in again joining the movement, because उनको लगा कि हमारी demands पहली बार में meet नहीं हुई, शायद next time भी ना हो. Many rich peasant communities decided not to join after the relaunch of the movement. Congress was unwilling to support the no rent campaigns, which was in support of the poor peasantry or the poor peasants who demanded that कोई रेंट नहीं हमें पे करना है. तो ऐसे नो रेंट कैंपेन्स को कांग्रेस सपोर्ट नहीं कर सकती थी, बिकॉज कांग्रेस वाज अगेन हैड द सपोर्ट ऑफ द रिच पेजेंट क्लास एंड फ्रॉम द इंडस्ट्रियल साइड they had the support of the industrialists. So therefore they could not go with the demands of either the peasants or the worker community. Withdrawal of support by the business class due to again various reasons, because they saw that the Congress leadership is tending towards being more socialist in nature. So they were again not very convinced in supporting at that time. Dalits also did not participate in large numbers. Low participation by industrial workers and even Muslim organizations and committees sparsely participated in the movement. Now, next topic or the last topic of this chapter is sense of collective belonging. Now, what is collective belonging? That is an idea through which the feeling of nationalism is again revived among the people. How people are brought together, and during these anti-colonial movements, when people are being oppressed, they develop a sense of common bond between them, a shared unity. That is a sense of unity and nationalism inspired by history, their common history, fiction, folklore and songs. Again, Abanindranath Tagore's image of Bharat Mata, that is you can say the allegory for India. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's song Vande Mataram united many people. The tricolor flag, which was again designed by Gandhiji in 1921, became a symbol of defiance. To use the national flag during meetings and protest marches was again the showing the true spirit of nationalism. Glorious developments in the ancient times instilled pride and united the Indians. History was being rewritten, showcasing that how Indians or ancient India was again a great civilization, and therefore the Indians themselves should not feel primitive, backward against the Britishers. Therefore, it required them to have that sense of pride in them that no, Indians as such by themselves are a part of a great civilization. Now, the last part of the chapter also includes about small portion about Quit India movement, which was launched again, and the famous do or die speech was given by Gandhiji in 1942 about that is करो या मरो. So वो एक थोड़ा सा aspect और इस Quit India movement में भी है, ठीक है. So this actually completes the summary of the chapter. Now we will be looking at the NCERT questions. All right. सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन है, why growth of nationalism in the colonies is linked to an anti-colonial movement. Now, as we can see, how nationalism, growth of nationalism. देखो सबसे पहला कि जहाँ पे भी anti-colonial movements हुए, वहाँ पे people were being oppressed, and this oppression led people to come together. That is, it helped in developing a sense of collective belonging among them. The shared history of descent, culture, all this played an important role, and therefore when people were being oppressed by a common oppressor, they felt the need to come together. Therefore, the growth of nationalism in most of the colonies or in the colonies is linked to the movement which was against colonialism in them. How the First World War helped in growth of national movement in India? Now again this question comes repeatedly or has been asked in the board exams. The first part, that is First World War and its effect, simple, war, loans लिए गए, ठीक है, इससे इंक्रीज इन एक्सपेंडिचर हुआ, तो उसको पे बैक करने के लिए कस्टम ड्यूटीज इंट्रोड्यूस करी गई, राइट, इनकम टैक्स इंट्रोड्यूस करा गया, उसके बाद फोर्स रिक्रूटमेंट करा गया, देन इंक्रीज इन प्राइजेस ऑफ एसेंशियल गुड्स, दाम बढ़ गए in prices. Many of the again influenza epidemic जो फैला, famines, because of that millions of people perished. So all these were effects of the First World War. All right, that is how the First World War helped in the growth of national movement. So all this brought people together and therefore helped in bringing even by this time in 1915 Mahatma Gandhi had also returned and he gave the idea of satyagrah, that is a non-violent method to achieve independence. Why Indians were outraged by the Rowlatt Act? Now as we know, what is Rowlatt Act? Rowlatt Act was hurriedly passed by the Imperial Legislative Council and which gave the government enormous power to detain the or arrest any individual without any just on the basis of mere suspicion. They could arrest anyone and they could detain these political prisoners without a trial up to 2 years. Now this enraged people because in India most of the Indian members opposed this Rowlatt Act. So therefore Indians were outraged by the Rowlatt Act and Gandhiji decided to call a nationwide hartal or strike on 6th of April 1919. Why Gandhiji decided to withdraw the non-cooperation movement? Because Gandhiji believed that satyagrahis are still not properly trained and there are instances of violence in many of the places, but majorly the Chauri Chaura incident in Gorakhpur in February of 1922 led to the calling of the non-cooperation movement, as Gandhiji believed that satyagrahis had to still to be trained properly in the form of or using non-violence as a method of defiance against the colonial government. What is meant by the idea of satyagrah? Now idea of satyagrah emphasize the power of truth, the need to search for truth. If the cause is true and the struggle is against injustice, there is no need to use violence. With time the oppressor conscience will automatically appeal to him and he will give up away using his weapons. So that is the idea of satyagrah. Now write a newspaper report on Jallianwala Bagh massacre or the Simon Commission. Now Jallianwala Bagh massacre, as we know, on the 13th of April 1919 on the day of Baisakhi, many of the people had gathered in Amritsar. Apart from this, the Jallianwala Bagh, where people had also gathered to listen to the demonstrations being protested or protest being made against the arrest of the two political leaders there, local leaders, that is Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu and Dr. Satyapal. General Dyer, without giving a warning, he came up with his troops and started firing on this crowd, which consisted of women, children as well as men of all ages. Now this became the most infamous incident in the Indian history. Later on, General Dyer commented that he wanted to produce a moral effect among the Indians by doing this. That is, so that each and every satyagrahi or Indian would realize that what it is, or to stand up against the colonial government, or what will happen or what will be the consequence of them protesting against the colonial government. That is the kind of moral effect he wanted to instill in the minds of the Indians. Simon Commission, again under the Tory government, the Simon Commission under the chairmanship of Sir John Simon, it was constituted. It wanted to look into the constitutional system in India and suggest some changes. When this Simon Commission arrived in India in 1928, it was greeted with slogans, "Go back Simon." Why? Because the Simon Commission, which wanted to suggest changes in the constitutional system in India, did not have any Indian members in it. So most of the parties, that is Congress as well as Muslim League, together came out and boycotted the Simon Commission. Now compare the images of Bharat Mata in this chapter with the image of Germania in chapter 1. Now as we know, Germania is the allegory of the German nation, painted by Philip Waite in 1848. Bharat Mata is the allegory of India and first painted by Abanindranath Tagore. Now both the images have a contrast or difference in them. That is, Germania is portrayed with a sword and where the oak, because German oak stands for heroism, whereas Bharat Mata in the image which is being painted by Abanindranath Tagore shows her as an ascetic being, okay, with a mala in her hand and a copy of Vedas. List all the different social groups which joined the non-cooperation movement of 1921, then choose any three and write about their hopes and struggles to show why they joined the movement. Now the three groups, that is urban middle classes, among them the lawyers, the police officers and others joined the movement, that is merchants, traders, and from the countryside peasants joined the movement, as well as forest people, the tribal people. Apart from that, the third was the people from the plantations. They all joined the movement, and each group had a different notion of Swaraj. See, for a tribal, that is people who are supporting Alluri Sitaram Raju at that time in Goodham Mills, for them the idea of Swaraj at that time meant that it would give them more rights on the forest land which had been taken by the colonial laws. As probably you would recall, in class 8th you might have studied the chapter Tribal Decus and the Vision of a Golden Age. Then in class 9th we studied a chapter Forest Society and Colonialism. So how the colonial laws affected the various tribal communities. So for them the idea of Swaraj was, or the independence or freedom, for them it meant was getting access to the forest land again. Now for probably the people, that is the peasants, the idea of Swaraj was on a different note. For them the idea of Swaraj was that they would be exempted from paying exorbitant taxes to the landlords, and probably for the workers it was that they had to pay, or they will get better wages, better working hours. So for every community the idea of Swaraj meant a different scenario. Like for plantation workers, because of the Inland Immigration Act which was implemented, they could not move out of the plantations. Now idea of Swaraj for them was that they could freely move in and out of the plantations as per their will. So probably for this answer we can go back and just have a look at, you can do that answer from, okay. So different strands. So these are the 3 points here. First, movement in towns, the urban middle classes participated, rebellion in the countryside where peasants participated, and third, Swaraj in plantations where plantation workers participated. All right. Okay, so coming on to the next question, discuss the Salt March to make clear why was it an effective symbol of resistance against the colonialism. Now why salt? Because salt was used as a symbol because salt as a commodity was utilized by everyone. Alright, abhi just हमने उसको discuss करा in civil disobedience movement, that is salt was used equally by the rich people, the poor people, probably the Indians, the Europeans, the people from upper caste, lower caste, being a Hindu or a Muslim or belonging to any religion, you consume salt. And the government's monopoly over the manufacture as well as the distribution of salt was in a way Gandhiji trying to show the draconian nature of the government. So therefore he wanted to use salt as one of his demands, through which people from every aspect of or every part of India could feel connected to. instead of an probably an abstract law, right? शायद एक कोई अलग से किसी लॉ से शायद लोग कनेक्ट उतना ना कर पाए जितना एक सॉल्ट एज अ कमोडिटी, क्योंकि वो डेली उसको लाइफ में यूज कर रहे हैं, तो उससे शायद वो ज्यादा कनेक्टेड फील करें. देयरफॉर ही वांटेड टू यूज सॉल्ट. देन फ्रॉम हिज ashram in Sabarmati ashram, he with his 78 volunteers, Sabarmati, along with his 78 volunteers, he walked a distance of 240 miles and reached the coastal town of Dandi, and on 6th of April 1930 boiled seawater and manufactured salt. See, also 6th of April signifies with the date, if you can remember, you can write it in the comment section, but still signifies with the date of the राउलेट एक्ट के खिलाफ जो सत्याग्रह लॉन्च करा था, हड़ताल 6th of April को. All right, okay. Now imagine you are a woman participating in civil disobedience movement. Explain what the experience meant to your life. Now, being a woman, you have to imagine that how during the civil disobedience movement, how women participated in large numbers in the manufacture of salt, picketing of liquor shops, as well as marching, including or involving themselves in protest marches. They saw duty towards nation as a sacred duty of women. So now they were coming out of their houses, participating in large numbers in the movement. Congress as a party at that time was only keen on their symbolic presence, but after probably as a comparison with non-cooperation movement, where we do not see much participation of women in large numbers, in civil disobedience movement women participated in large numbers. Now you we have to write this answer just as like I heard about the Mahatma Gandhi speeches, and again it instilled a sense of pride in me to do the duty towards the nation, and being a woman I considered that as a sacred duty. I took part in protest marches, listened to speeches of various leaders. Apart from that, helped in picketing of shops, liquor shop, burning of foreign cloth, also organizing whatever way I could to help people realize, or help men also realize this ultimate goal of achieving independence. So that is how being a woman, how you participated in the civil disobedience movement. Now the last question is, why did political leaders differ sharply over the question of separate electorates? Now Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and the Muslims. The first point, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was of the opinion of separate electorates. So during the second roundtable conference, which was held in London, Gandhiji and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar clashed on the issue of separate electorates, where the British government was keen on awarding separate electorates for the Dalits, the oppressed communities. Now Gandhiji felt that if separate electorates were allowed for the people of the oppressed classes, their unity or their mingling into the Indian fabric would be difficult. So therefore he went on a fast unto death when he was in Yerwada jail of Pune, and later on there was a Pune Pact which was signed between Dr. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi, which resulted in Dr. Ambedkar giving up his demand of separate electorates, but there would be reserved constituencies for the people of the depressed classes. Same with the case of Muslims, where Muslims also demanded separate electorates for themselves, but again because later on during the all parties conference, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was also willing to give away the separate electoral status if they were given reserved constituencies. Muslims as a community were given reserved constituencies, but that offer could not proceed further because the compromises could not be worked out. So both these majorly political leaders differed sharply over the question of separate electorates in India. So that is all for today. That is a short summary of the chapter Nationalism in India and with NCERT question and answers. Thank you so much.